I request our guests to kindly settle down. Once again, our guests have already arrived and we are starting in very, very shortly. So kindly settle down, please. I request all our delegates the fourth day of the World Congress of Accountants is starting in soon. We would request all our delegates to settle down so that we can start away right here. Once again, requesting all our delegates here to settle down so that we are able to start right away. It's a very, very exciting day that we are starting in very soon. We have loads of sessions here. covering up on the themes of here at the Jasmine Hall itself on how we can really live in a connected world to really create an insight about the future. We have our sessions coming in post at 10:30 on enabling sustainability for a better future, followed with a very interesting session on being future ready, where we are going to be discussing about India at 100. And we have an interesting session in the first half in itself at the Orchid Hall as well, talking about the recent changes in corporate economic and other commercial laws. Post a short break, we will be having our special sessions at the Jasmine and at the Orchid Hall as well. On a happy state of mind for a greener world at the Jasmine Hall itself, and at the Orchid Hall, we would be having our initiatives for MSME, startup, PFM, and export of CA services. In the second half for the day today, post-lunch, we will be having a session at the Jasmine Hall on public sector priorities. These are the concurrent sessions on trust, sustainability, and accountability. At the Tulip Hall, which is on the ground floor, we will be having a concurrent session on technology and the future. That will be a panel discussion. And at the Orchid Hall, we would be having a theme on cybersecurity in financial services. We have a concurrent session at the ICAI auditorium as well on the theme of professional and investment opportunities in Middle East and Africa. And in the evening, in our plenary session at the Jasmine Hall in itself, we have our Chief Value Officers championing an integrated mindset to drive sustainable value creation. We will have a very special session at the Jasmine at about 4:30 in the evening, which is on Transform Your Life with Positive Thinking, followed with a closing ceremony. So we are starting in right here and requesting all those who are entering in to kindly get seated so that we are able to start with our very first session for the day today. Of accountants today for, and hereby we start with our very first session. The theme for this session is, do we really live in a connected world? Which is going to discuss an insight into a possible future of how connectivity can change the lives of professional accountants and businesses globally. With over 3 decades of the internet that we've seen, and over 2 decades of its explosion through mobile connectivity, and over a decade of maturity of cloud infrastructure, most of us use our devices for really trivial functions, for just personal productivity. Here is a look in this session into why, how, and perhaps when connectivity will make a difference in our professional lives. To deliberate further on this theme for the day today, we have our distinguished guests for the session today. May I please take this opportunity to invite our respected CA Y.M. Kale sir, past president, ICAI, on the dais, please, with a big round of applause. Thank you so much, sir, for honoring us with your presence here today. And may I now take this opportunity to welcome our honorable guest for the day, Mr. Bharat Goenka, co-founder and vice chairperson, Tally Solutions. Let's give a big round of applause. Sir has been honored with numerous accolades over the years, with the most recent one being the Padma Shri Award, India's fourth highest civilian award for his contribution to trade and industry. His other notable accolades include NASSCOM's first ever Lifetime Achievement Award, the title of the father of the Indian software product industry, and M. Visvesvaraya Memorial Award. Let's give a big round of applause for the same, everyone. We welcome you, sir. Thank you so much. And at the onset, may I now request our respected CA Y.M. Kale, sir, our past president, ICAI, to kindly address the session.
Ladies, distinguished visitors and fellow participants in the World Congress of Accountants. All speeches can be vastly improved by making them shorter, especially in a professional assemblage which comprises many listeners with keener grasp of the subject than this speaker. To those of you accustomed to see a spirit of fun alight unbidden upon declamations in similar proceedings, I plead inability to dwell on any lighter side while presenting insights on how connectivity can change our lives and businesses. Because after 5 decades, initially in the profession for 3 decades, and later couple of decades in the international Hinduja conglomerate, the future risks I perceive are monumentally unfunny. In fact, these portents are ubiquitous, and some of these have aspects that may be insidious. It took the world of international trade more than a century to move from the cash basis of accounting in the post-Renaissance era to an accrual system in the age of exploration, and then on to mercantile bookkeeping in the colonial period. But it may now take less than a decade to render obsolete much of what we know as we move deeper into data analytics, protection, IoT, robotic process automation, blockchain, AI, cryptocurrency, cybersecurity, and all manner of fintech. Bizarre as it may seem, competition for CAs in the future decades may not be from rival callings, but more generally from inroads of connectivity driven by newer technologies into all sorts of adjacent competencies. This is not an alarmist foreboding, but an exhortation to examine how our roles will be recast and our work modalities impacted, not only in respect of concerns and benefits, but for all agenda, including techie and humie issues. Mouse clicks already open countless doors to knowledge, enterprise, and commerce continents away. But what will shortly overtake us is a global embrace of new gadgetry, info predators, electronic town halls, high-tech shovels that drown us in the info junk of a 21st century village marketplace exchanging information and services. There is a relentless change in how we work, how we learn, how we remain connected, how we are regulated, and how our voices, our appeals and representations are heard. Digitalization of economy is bringing about a fundamental shift in the very basis of international taxation. Long-held principles of how nexus for taxing rights of each jurisdiction gets established are undergoing major changes, and based on work undertaken as part of Pillar 1 and 2 of OECD, G20 and BAPS action plans. Traditional definitions of permanent establishments are widened from a largely physical concept to something more virtual or digital. Introduction of significant economic presence concept into the Income Tax Acts is a notable indicator of impending changes. It is not improbable that regulators, employers, insurers, and hackers could claim intrusive access to our bank accounts, transaction files, confidential documents, and customer records. Markets have become increasingly reliant on interdependent technology systems, and the cyber security risk looms even larger. Expanded far beyond the realm of IT, cybersecurity has become a business continuity necessity to ensure that shareholder value remains intact, along with privacy of corporate intellectual property. Security of our assets in an emerging digital environment is foundational to how a corporate is viewed by capital markets, lenders, and other stakeholders with increasingly higher levels of analytics and AI. So, exemplary oversight of cybersecurity risk and cyber governance are fundamental to sound operations, inter alia, because rarely does any failure happen in a vacuum. Thus, the threat of systemic disruption has taken on a menacing preponderance among the concerns of regulators and policymakers worldwide. Solutions now need to match pervasiveness of problems. Defenses must improve when new vulnerabilities are discovered. Cyber risks are rarely posed to a single network, but often to an entire ecosystem. So, measures must be dynamic in collaborating with law enforcement. Information must be shared to help develop new technologies that prevent attacks. Proactive, preventive cybersecurity will necessitate skills on interface devices going far beyond mere trackballs, styluses, microphones, and cameras, extending in a few years into the realms of special glasses and helmets tracking eye and head movements, 3D videos, tactile impression devices, body nets linking devices in cars and homes. In concluding this opening address, it may be sufficiently important to diverge and dispense with the usual pleasantries in order to underscore that not just the accounting profession, but almost all businesses and related ecosystems may face future challenges beyond current prevision. As a society, we seem headed for what may loosely be described as info-feudalism, perhaps yet another oligarchy comparable to the feudal age, comprising broadly of only two classes, a few info barons and numerous workstation serfs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful address to the theme for the session today. We are indeed honored to hear from you. And moving forward, I would now like to take this moment to invite our honorable guest, Mr. Bharat Goenka, co-founder and vice chairperson, Tally Solutions, to kindly address the session.
Thank you. And thank you, Kale Saab. I think that was, an amazing introduction to imagining an unfolding future. There are many in this room, I can't see enough of you, but many in this room who have hair the color of mine, which means you have also grown up in an age when the internet was not there and then you saw it emerging, when mobility did not exist and now it has become part of our daily lives. And more of our daily life is now governed by how information is stored, analyzed, and tracked in the cloud. An enormous difference has taken place in our lives, and none of us can even remember the past. And very few of us can imagine the future. And Mr. Kale has been expressing one of those viewpoints about the future, that this is the enormity of change ahead of us. What I would like to share with you is a perspective of the future which is slightly narrower than what he discussed, and influenced by the way companies like mine are working towards trying to shape such a future. When I look at how technology has impacted my own organization, and when I look at how technology has impacted organizations who are customers of ours, and many of you here in this room are customers of ours, we see that the bulk of the impact has really been at a very personal level. The way we access information has changed dramatically. None of us remember the way information used to be accessed earlier. The way we communicate has changed. Most of us are now sending text messages and emails. Even inside the organization, when we want to discuss with colleagues, we are using technology to communicate with each other. Entertainment, of course, has changed forever. And yet, personal productivity inside an organization has changed, but organizational productivity still does not have as much of an impact as one would imagine. When I connect it to your profession, my company is large enough to benefit from far more continuous engagement with expert chartered accountants on a variety of subjects, but we cannot do it with adequate frequency because all such interaction requires conversations around data. And all conversations tend to be in isolation of the data on which you want to talk about. Because access to data across organizations is not natural. Access to mails across organizations, access to PDF reports, access to some packaged presentation, that is possible to do across organizations. But can you actually converse with me on my data, on my transactions? And if you cannot converse with me on my transactions, how would I take advantage of your expertise? How would you offer your expertise to your range of clients? And despite the enormous changes which have taken place in technology, this still remains distant. And a variety of reasons for this. There is no standard of data representation, which is business data representation, which can be perpetually accessed by more than one entity. All businesses tend to be islands within themselves. So if I use some software for my records, that information can be exported, but once it is exported, you no longer have access to the live data. So I can send you a moment-in-time snapshot and try to discuss with you against it. And at that time, you don't have access to my history, which is what you want before you want to respond to my query. And that is fundamentally in today's world not practical. And the reasons why they're not practical are elements such as the identity architecture of data. That what identifies a unit of data and how does that identity remain constant and consistent across time and across organizations. Standards are close to impossible to emerge. And while reporting standards have emerged, like the XBRL formats and so on, there are enough emerging standards, but they are all moment-in-time standards. They are not live data exchange standards. We believe that companies like ours are working to try and see how we can take advantage of this emerged landscape of technology. The fact that there are exchange frameworks available at the back end, which can be used to connect two organizations together on common identities and common interpretation of data. And when that happens, you can imagine yourself, especially in a city like Mumbai, driving from your home to your workplace and being able to attend to queries against information, and not just queries depending upon your memory for information or looking at some static data for information. You'll be able to connect into live data systems of your own organization, of your clients. You'll be able to access them across years and look at trends because you are working on the same live data as your customer is working, as your client is working. That is when we can say that yes, technology is making a difference in our lives as professionals. And it will change the way you think about what types of services you can offer to your clients. It has always puzzled me that some of the people with the best brains and the best training to interpret and predict and extrapolate the health of an organization and the future it can go towards have only occasional interaction with the clients, simply because access to live data is difficult and therefore access to your expertise is difficult. That is what we are hoping that we will see changing in the months and perhaps in another 12 to 18 months ahead. And that hopefully will change the intensity of your engagement and your participation in what one would call the global economy of the world. Because what it needs is precise inputs by people who understand the subject of money better than anyone else does. Businessmen have an acumen for sales, they have an acumen for looking at markets, they have an acumen for creating markets. Very few businessmen have really the acumen for finance. They depend upon you. But their access to you against the same information base that they are operating on is not as widespread as it should be and it can be. And that's what one is hoping to correct. And that's the perspective which one wanted to present. That how does connectivity change the world of the future for people like you? Because without that, the pace of the journey will be slower, and with it, the expectation is the acceleration and the certainty of acceleration will be much higher. We are hoping that many companies like us who are working on this subject will be engaging with all of you as the framework matures, as we are able to demonstrate why it is going to become possible. Because today it is not possible. And when something is not possible today, it is difficult to imagine why it will become possible tomorrow. But unless some foundational work is available, it is just an aspirational statement. But very soon, once the foundations are laid, we will be engaging with all of you to help envision this future together and see how we can collectively make an amazing difference to the world. So with this, I just wanted to wish you all the very best in the years ahead. It is challenging days, and as always, challenging days are exciting days. So we look forward to working with all of you and look forward to an amazing future for this profession, which has been one of the noblest professions that I have personally come across. Thank you.